Indeed, the Book of Boba Fett has wrapped up. First of all, I want to apologize to you guys for my review of episode 7. For some reason, the audio at the end got cut off. About a minute or so of my review was cut off. I don't know what happened, and I can't even re upload it because I lost the original file. I deleted it. So, my apologies on that. Again, I have no clue what happened there, but I assure you that that will not happen here. We're going to be talking about the entire 7 episode run of the Book of Boba Fett. Now, as of right now, as of the making of this video, I do not know if there's going to be a second season, but I can tell you from my own personal opinion is that I'm not really excited if there will be. There are a lot of issues with the Book of Boba Fett. The first thing I want to say is I do not hate this show. A lot of people did hate this show. I didn't hate it, but there were some things about it that were very disappointing. I thought maybe it started out pretty good, showing how Boba escaped the Rancor. I'm sorry, the Sarlacc pit, and him getting the Rancor as a pet, foreshadowing the last episode, and kind of his relationship with the Sand People. Then things started to slow down, and it started getting a bit repetitive. And so the middle chunks, like episode 3 and 4, were not that good. Now I liked them when I saw them, but you have to understand that I was watching them really tired at 3 in the morning, and it wasn't really, to me, like going back and seeing them again, they do really drag. And that's kind of the problem with the show, is that the pacing is really, really slow. Then we have episodes 5 and 6, which are the most celebrated episodes from this show, and probably the best ones, and yet the joke that was made by so many people is that those are the 2 episodes that don't even have Boba in them. He's barely even in those episodes. It's taking the focus away from Boba and putting it on the Mandalorian, on Din Djarin. And I gotta tell you, listen, whether you like the Book of Boba Fett or not, whether you love the show or not, I've talked to different people from different perspectives, and I feel like the people who grew up with the EU, the people who grew up with what's now called Legends and read those stories about Boba Fett, a lot of them really don't like the show, whereas those that kind of came along later and started growing up with the Filoni stuff, like the Clone Wars and Rebels, they loved it. I was in the middle because I saw both sides of things, but I can really understand because this Boba Fett was not the ruthless Boba Fett that we've seen before. It's not even about the books. Even in the Mandalorian, Boba Fett killed more people, if it seemed, than in the entire run of his own show. You know, even in The Mandalorian, it feels that way. And so you have The Mandalorian showing up, you have Grogu, you have Luke Skywalker and Ahsoka, and it's almost like, I don't know if Filoni and Favreau were worried about the show maybe dragging and not picking up, and so they put these episodes in the middle, or if they wanted to continue the story of The Mandalorian before they even do the new show. But the reality is, whether you like this show or not, the Mandalorian Din Djarin outshined Boba Fett in this show. He came in and he completely outshined him and made him into a secondary character. And I thought maybe in the final episode they would do something to kind of elevate Boba back. And what they did, in my opinion, just was not enough. I don't think it was enough. And I feel like having the Mandalorian show up and outshine Boba Fett, who's an older character and at one time a much more beloved character, it says something. It says that Filoni and Favreau and Robert Rodriguez kind of failed at getting Boba over as being like this new sort of popular character. He's still popular, and some fans love his development, but I feel like having Boba go a little bit softer, I think may have been a detriment to his character. I feel like the Mandalorian, Din Djarin, he could probably be the one guy who's kind of a badass but still has a heart and still cares about people, whereas Boba Fett, he could show signs of that and show he has a heart, but I think Boba Fett works better as an anti-hero. If you remember, before I watched this show, before this show came out, I did some videos, and if you're watching all my content, you remember me saying this, that I was worried about this show because Boba Fett works better as an enforcer character. When you see him in the old trilogy, and even when you see him, even, I don't know about Kid Boba Fett in episode 2, but like, if you remember all this, you know, what made Boba Fett cool was the ship and this costume and everything, and the fact that he was an enforcer. Enforcer characters work best when they're quiet. They don't really make a lot of noise. They're just kind of like, you know, the silent badass. And that's what Boba Fett was. This show, they flipped it completely, where Boba Fett's this sort of, you know, this likable hero. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I feel like it wasn't really earned. I feel like they needed more time. We needed more time with Boba actually slowly turning as opposed to him just flipping. It felt like it felt when you watch the show over again, especially when you binge it, because that changes things when you binge it. It is easier to watch when you binge it. I'm going to say that. Watching it week to week for this show, no, it's like Hawkeye. Hawkeye was better when you binge it. So you notice that you right from the beginning, right from episode 1, they paint Boba Fett as being this really likable hero, and that's not what Boba Fett originally was. He was an anti-hero, and I think it works better that way. He's over here trying to save Tatooine when he's just out for himself, sort of like what Jango Fett was, except that Jango Fett made a deal with the wrong side. And it's very telling to me, very, very telling that the Mandalorian outshined him. Because, and that should tell you that the Mandalorian TV show really got that character over. Whereas Boba Fett, I don't think this show did him any favors. I think he's actually less popular now than he was before. I talked to some fans who say they actually like this version of Boba Fett and they want to see more with him. And I agree, to a degree. I actually don't like this version of Boba Fett compared to the anti-hero Boba Fett. But I do want to see where he goes from here. But I don't want it to be his own show. I don't want a second season of Book of Boba Fett. I really don't. I'm being honest. I would rather they continue The Mandalorian, do the Ahsoka Tano show, maybe even do a Luke show, because I really want to see that. But as much as I think Boba Fett is was kind of a scary character, I was never a huge Boba Fett fan. And it's weird because they had a pocket of fans that just loved this guy. It's kind of like Broly in Dragon Ball Z. This guy was so popular for years, and I didn't really understand why. But I mean, I did understand, but it just didn't really correlate with me. But then when he showed up in The Mandalorian, and he was just a total badass. I mean, the first episode, you see him turning around, it's like, oh, this is going to be awesome. Like, I was excited. And I thought Boba Fett, they built the hype up for him in The Mandalorian so well, and I think in this show they kind of killed it. I really do feel that way. I feel like people are not that interested in him anymore. Can they save it? Possibly. But I think that their opportunity to really have it work was in episode 7. One thing I also, I talked to some fans about this. Cad Bane did not get enough screen time. I love the way Cad Bane looked in this show. He's terrifying in person, and they just killed him in the last episode. Now, there's talk that he survived and he's going to come back, but the storyline with him and Boba Fett runs deep. And if you are a fan of the Filoni stuff, the Clone Wars and all that, you already know it. But there's a lot of Star Wars fans that don't watch the animated series. They just don't. They just have never gotten around to it. They don't like the animation. So they only watch the live action stuff. And those fans have no idea. They have no context for the history of Boba Fett and Cad Bane. They don't have it. And so it's tricky for Filoni and Favreau to do stuff like this because it's rewarding for the fans who have been around, X number of years watching all the content, but it could be confusing because I'm sure some fans, in fact, I know for a fact I talked to them, were like, well, who is this guy and why should we care? He looks like a badass, but what do we know about him? There wasn't much there. So, again, there's little criticisms about the show. The thing is, the reality, in my opinion, is that the show did drag quite a bit. I am not in any way looking forward to rewatching this show, and I don't think I'm going to. I don't think I'm going to watch this show ever again. Episodes 5 and 6 were important for the Mandalorian storyline, which I do still care about. I do still care about Din Djarin. I do still care about Grogu, Luke, and Ahsoka. I care about those characters. Boba Fett, not so much. Boba Fett, I think, I wouldn't mind it if he, came back for I was in The Mandalorian season 3, but I don't want him to have his own show. I feel like what they should have done with this, because they dragged this on forever, and again, some of the stuff was important, but some of it wasn't. They should have probably shaved this down. Instead of it being 7 episodes, have it be 4 one-hour episodes, or even 5, and not even include some of that middle stuff, because it wasn't really necessary, and a lot of fans hated it, and I just thought that it was just dragging. I thought it was unnecessary stuff. So ultimately, the Book of Boba Fett, I would say I had fun watching it, most of it anyways, but I do feel like people are going to view this as being Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau's first sort of, I don't want to say flop, but maybe misstep here. And it goes to show that all that hype that Star Wars fans had over Filoni and Favreau taking over, these guys are not perfect, man. These guys are not perfect. Yes, I would rather have them in charge than Kathy Kennedy, but, she's obviously not perfect, but, you're not going to ever get, a perfect story here, and you're going to get missteps, and I feel like a lot of fans really didn't like this show. I liked more than half of it, and that, to me, is a good sign, but, like I said, I don't want any more Boba, and that's That's a problem, man. That's an issue, But besides all that, the cinematography was great. Tamora Morrison is a great actor. The incredible effects with Luke Skywalker's face looked even better than in Mandalorian. Same thing with Cad Bane; he looked incredible. And then the post-credit scene with the sheriff. I'm sorry, the marshal, not the sheriff. The marshal still being alive. I don't know if they're going to give him his own show or if they're going to do Boba Fett season 2. I don't know. I guess the numbers will tell us, right? But overall, I would say that this season was a thumbs in the middle, yo. Definitely nowhere near on the level of Mandalorian season 1 and 2. Not even close. I would even put Clone Wars season 7 above this. That's my opinion. Now, if you liked it more than I did, that's cool. Like, I'm happy for you because I know a lot of people did. But for me, like, you could have thrown away half of this show and it would have been a better show. I think it would have been better. They really have to stop trying to make every badass and every enforcer character have his own little storyline. Like, they got to stop doing that. Like, some backstory is better kept to be secretive, you know what I mean? And that way we can always wonder about them. And in a way, they have that mystery aspect. The whole Boba Fett mystery is kind of gone. And that's my opinion. So what did you think? I want to know about Book of Boba Fett season 1 and maybe the last season. I don't know. They haven't announced anything else after this. So let me know, and I'll talk to y'all soon.